Welcome back to the Visually Hidden Selects podcast, episode 47. This month's selection was Back to the Future, celebrating its 40th anniversary this month. Jeez Louise, July 3rd, 1985, July 3rd, 2025, we dropped the VHS episode, and here we are now talking about it, and honestly, I don't know anybody over the age of like 4 who has not seen this film. Really, it's a staple. It's like mandatory, especially in the United States. It's like the all-American movie.
It's funny you say that. I don't remember the first time I saw it. It has always been kind of like Little Red Riding Hood.
Exactly. It's always been there.
Yeah.
And it's got the small hometown, it's got rock and roll, it's got skateboarding, it's got sci-fi, it's got romance, it's got family,
It's got romance. Yeah, people
it's
always
got
ask me,
family romance.
people always ask, what's your appeal? What's the appeal? I said, it's got, except for horror, it's got everything. It's sci-fi, it's action, it's adventure, it's comedy, it's a buddy story, it's got heart, it's got everything.
It does, and it has it has all of these relatable elements. They're not so far out of reach where it's like, oh, now I'm living vicariously. It's like, no, you can connect with these characters, and specifically with Marty, especially as a young person. Like, if you weren't a teenager, you were going to be a teenager, or you were a teenager. So it's like you got that, and then as you just grow and mature, it's like, well, now you're connecting with the parents on different levels. Your Doc Brown is always solid. He's right there with you, as I said in the video. So yeah, this movie, it's a staple, and I can't speak more highly of it. Like I'm almost a little ashamed that it took so long to get to, but I think it was worth the wait, because you can't just come out of the gate with something like Back to the Future. Like, even Robert Zemeckis had to cut his teeth on a few films. Michael J. Fox had to like dwell in TV land for a while. Like Steven Spielberg, that has been, like, or never was, he's lucky this came along. I'm totally joking there. No, but it was good that he did, his relationship with Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale is really kind of, I think, one of the more significant in contemporary film history, as well as just the technical side of filmmaking. Like, and it kind of all spawns from this film. I mean, yes, they worked together previously, but Back to the Future really just kind of like pushed it into another realm and set Robert Zemeckis off on this career that I don't think he otherwise would have had, because he was really kind of on his way to Skid Row before this. Before Romancing the Stone, that's really what kind of like opened the door for him, and then this just like put his place at the table.
Robert Zemeckis is one of those guys that I consistently say, when they talk about the greatest directors or the most influential directors, this guy gets forgotten about, and it's fucking criminal.
See, I don't know that that's 100%. I think people who don't know, people who maybe shouldn't be talking.
Maybe that's what it is. But like,
because anybody who knows what they're talking about knows about Robert Zemeckis and just the fucking significance and like debt that we have to him in terms of cinema and technology.
Just the stuff that because I think in that realm, the big one is Lucas, right? Everyone talks about Lucas, and hey, not taking anything away from him, but when you've got stuff like Back to the Future, Roger Rabbit, Death Becomes Her, pushing the envelope of what you could do on screen. I mean,
Forrest Gump,
absolutely. That was that one about the guy tight ropes, the walk between the World Trades, the Twin Towers. I mean, just the technical aspects of all these films, unbelievable. This guy really pushes it forward, man. And it starts here.
And then like the decade he spent in like the motion capture animation, like developing that and pursuing it with Beowulf and Polar Express. And I don't remember the other ones, but they were there. It was like a whole decade of his filmography was like this motion capture animation, like,
Wasn't it the
chapter.
A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, like, just taking technology, like, again, James Cameron, I think, gets thrown out there a lot. And you wouldn't have the Avatar movies without all of the fucking shit that Robert Zemeckis had to fucking eat on Polar Express and all those other films. It's like he pioneered that to a point where it became okay. This now actually looks good because we've learned so much from these other films.
Yeah.
I think that's actually one of the qualities. I had a little epiphany. I've seen this film a lot, but in watching it to prepare for this, it reminds me of, it's like a visual form of the Mousetrap game, with all of like right with the opening sequence. You have all these little things like moving together, and then even some of the editing, along with the music. It's like everything is like falling perfectly, and the ball is going where it has to go, and all the pieces are coming together with the story. But also visually, everything is just kind of like, it's like perfectly lined up, and cha-ching, cha-ching the whole way. I think that was one of the qualities that I kind of picked up on in this most recent viewing of the film.
Yeah, right down to the ending, with the lightning bolt, and like talk about like crackerjack timing. It's like, I,
Yeah,
at the end, like what does Doc say? Is like, all you have to do is, drive under the wire at precisely, 10:04 when the lightning hits the thing. It's like, oh,
Everything will
yeah,
be
that's
fine.
yeah.
it.
As
Yeah.
long as you do that,
Yeah.
nothing will go wrong.
Everything will
Right.
be
Yeah. And
fine.
that's where it's like, that's like the basket falling in the game, So it's like, everything is like perfect.
That's a great way to take that in and look at that. I appreciate that.
Sure, sure.
This movie, man, for me is my all-time favorite movie. It's not even fucking close. I mean, I've seen this probably circling around 200 something times, but this is, to your point, Louise, I wish I could go back and watch this for the first time because it's always been there. So I
Yeah.
wish I
Hmm.
could have watched it a little bit older just to be on the edge of my seat because I know how everything turns out in the end of the film, and I kind of wish I didn't sometimes. I want to have that
Hmm.
experience, but man, I love this movie. I can't say enough good things about it. But I wish I could have that feeling of it was the Men in Black could get me, and just wipe that from my memory so I
Hmm.
could just watch it again for the first time ever.
You know what's interesting though about that, and it kind of plays into one of the themes about the movie. It's like, yeah, like then you're messing with the space time continuum. It's like, what if you saw it now and you're like, fuck this stupid movie with that stupid loser kid. Like, fuck him,
Could you
fucking
imagine?
stupid teenage dork. What does he know about anything? Like you might not connect with Marty the same way. You might not be as affected by the story today as
Maybe
you
you're right.
were when you were a kid.
I'll tell you, this movie affected me a lot. It's so weird because I started wanting to play guitar because of this movie. I started to learn how to ride a skateboard because of this movie. But I remember one very specific time the movie ended and I shut it off and I got really sad. I mean, I was little. I got so sad because I just enjoy it so much and I want to put it back on. But I
Mm.
remember having this thought. I said, "Man, I know all the lines to this movie, and I'm so good at knowing this movie." And I said to myself, "How will this ever serve me in my life?" And as a kid, I don't know. That was like one of the first, like more adult thoughts I had. Had
Hmm.
no idea that I would become an actor, but I'm so good at knowing all these lines from all these different people and all these cues, and it made me sad. Like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do with the rest of my
Oh,
life? I'm
wow.
10,
Yeah.
like, but I had no idea that this is, I would become an actor and this would become, well, I mean, it was my favorite film, but it's maintained. I've seen a lot of stuff that I truly love, but this has a place in my heart like nothing else.
Oh, that's great. And you know what? I wonder about that, if you were to see it as an adult. One thing I think I like about it is that even with what Marty has to, he's like coaching his dad in particular, but he's telling him things that like his dad has said to him or probably said to him, and so
Or
it's,
should have said to him.
or should have said. And so I think an adult, especially if they have kids, think they would identify, and it's almost like, yeah, see, the kid gets it. Like, this is stuff you gotta share with your kids, you know? So I think it might connect maybe in a different way, but
Because a lot of people always say, like, well, why the hell was this kid friends with this old scientist? That
yeah.
never crossed my mind anytime I've watched it, because they're just friends. But,
But they were, yeah.
to your point though, maybe what he was lacking from George, he got from Doc. That
Mhm.
elder advice, and just if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And he ends up
Mhm.
saying that to George, and then it has that effect. It just goes around. But like maybe that's
Well,
part of the key.
I think one of the more brilliant things about this particular film is the attention to detail and how everything is there for a reason or a function or whatever. And so, you watch the movie, and the beginning of the movie, Marty goes over, and what does he do? He plugs into the amplifier. So he
Mhm.
probably found Doc to like help him like build this like killer amplifier for his music career, for his band. He's like, oh, this guy like knows how to use, because on Doc Brown's van, it says like scientist for hire or something.
Well, they
It also says it in the phone book, which
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
I love that.
great, you're alive.
Scientist.
They cover that in the comic. Bob Gale did a 6-story arc, and the thing was, Marty goes to the local music shop to pick up a tube for his amp because he blew one. All the
Hmm.
tubes are sold out. Like, he's like, again, like, where are these tubes? And it's like, oh, this guy across town, Doc Brown,
Hmm.
he bought all our tubes, so he goes there to
Yeah.
see if he could buy one off of him, and that's how they become buddies.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
like,
wouldn't they have become friends in 1955?
What? Sorry,
Isn't that when they first met? In 1955?
in '85, in
Marty,
in the original time,
Marty and
Marty in the
Doc.
original timeline.
But well, I think that's one of the questions was, like, when did they first meet? Because I was wondering, like, when did they become friends? How did they become friends?
Then it
But
becomes a
then
paradox thing where it's like, oh, well,
which is fun.
he must have met Marty in 1955 all along,
Hmm.
Yeah, I
because
think
then
so.
he's sitting on that
Maybe.
letter.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
I always attribute, because people talk about that, and I always attribute
Oh,
that to, until he goes in the time machine, he hasn't met Marty yet.
Mhm.
because yeah, there's those clues like
Because if you
the
go, yeah, if you go through,
ball.
yeah, linear time, he
Mhm.
has to get to that point where he gets into the DeLorean for the very first time, and
Mhm.
from then it's like almost like it transfers, and like the letters on Doc. So as soon
Hmm.
as
Mhm.
he leaves, it's there and it's ready for him to come
Yeah.
back.
Mhm.
So I love this. I could talk about this all day.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, because yeah, in the beginning of the movie, he goes to the Twin Pine Malls, and Mr. Peabody,
Mhm.
trying to breed pine trees, and then at the end, it's the Lone Pine Mall. So like
Mhm.
it was that all along, but it wasn't. So yeah, I think
Mhm.
there's a point there. So I think Steve's right. He met him, but then he re-met him, and
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
that's what kicked off the storyline, and then that builds in Back to the Future Part 2 with the alternate timelines,
Mhm.
Which,
and
yeah,
just trying to fix and correct all those things. So yeah, it's a can of worms. It's a little messy, but I think they do a pretty good job of handling it.
some scientists, I think, were asked, like, what science fiction time travel movie kind of got, if time travel was possible, who kind of got it the closest, and I think a bunch of them had said Back to the Future was the closest to actual time travel. So, all right,
Mhm.
well, they're doing something right.
I mentioned this in the video, but Crispin Glover, this is also probably like
High watermark.
his peak, because he he is such a character, and like you watch
Mhm.
interviews with him, and sometimes he's remaining in whatever character he recently portrayed,
Yeah.
and here he's coming off as George McFly. And when you get to the end of this film and he's like confident George, it's like, wow, how
Mhm.
is that the same fucking dude from Friday the 13th Part 4 doing that fucking crazy Crispin Glover dance? You know
Yeah.
what the fuck I'm talking about.
Exactly, the dead fuck. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like night
Like
and day.
to like achieve what he did with the character of George McFly, and then like the two three personas really, because
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
young unconfident George, there's older unconfident George, and then there's overconfident
That's right.
George, and it's like that triangle of characters, it's like, wow. Because yeah, if you watch the film, which I'm guessing you probably have if you're listening to this podcast, but in the beginning you first meet him and he's older, unconfident, dorky George. And then you go back and you see when he's a kid, and like you see those moments where he's writing and he has like those aspirations, but he has
Mhm.
that fear, and that's just like compounded as he's gotten older.
Mhm.
It's like that is a different character.
I think he's one of my favorite parts. I love, like, obviously Marty is great. It's kind of his story, but then in watching it again, it's like it's kind of George McFly's
Yeah.
story, because Marty, like, he goes and he comes back. And he's Marty. He's Marty back then, he's Marty again. And George McFly is the one that, like, yeah, you see the change. His character really has an arc. And I love, like, with Michael J. Fox, I like his acting, mostly like the physical, like the facial expressions, when a message is sent with his face or one is received, he's responding to something. But I think Crispin Glover, like, it is like full everything. It's like everything is on. And I love, like, you get to see the moments when he changes from, the insecure George into the one that you get to see at the end. And I love, like, the close up of his, like, making the fist, like, you see that transformation. It's awesome.
Yeah,
He's great. He's great in this.
George definitely is, I think, the main character of the movie, of the first movie.
Mhm.
He goes through the most, like you said, the most change. He has the biggest character
Mhm.
arc. Marty's the
Mhm.
catalyst for that change. And maybe
Mhm.
that's it. Maybe that, I just having this thought now, and that's what I love about this movie. I keep thinking about it all these years and still think new things. We never see George's parents, right? We don't even
Mhm.
catch a glimpse of, like, we see Lorraine's family. We don't see a glimpse of George.
Mhm.
We don't know that he has a dad in his life, or some
Mhm.
kind of male role model. So he has all these insecurities. But then Marty brings him this information, this mantra from Doc: if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And he kind of passes that along. And it's like, so he's not present for Marty because he's got his own shit in '85.
Mhm.
He's still, like, afraid of Biff and all this stuff. He hasn't become a man really. And that
Mhm.
transformation takes place through that, through the catalyst of Marty. But I always say that the first movie is George's movie, the second movie is Marty's movie, and the third movie is Doc's movie.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
I always break them down,
Yeah,
because
I think
those are the things that they have to overcome. It's
Mhm.
the confidence, it's the ego for Marty, and then
Yeah.
Mhm.
for Doc, it's finally, branching out of his
Mhm.
shell in a way,
Mhm.
and accepting, love and all these
Life.
other things. Yeah, and just
Mhm.
because he's so scientific, and he's,
Mhm.
and I love that aspect of it, is like, what would you do, yeah, not, not in here, but up here. Marty tells him, like, you're right, I'm a scientist, I have to think scientifically. But then at the end, his heart wins out, and he
Mhm.
grows. So all three of these
Mhm.
characters grow over the course of these films, but because of each other. And I think that
Hmm.
this intertwining relationship is phenomenal. I mean, whether it was intentional or accidental, again, lightning in a bottle. They caught some magic here, and it's beautiful storytelling.
Yeah, and I love the friendship that Dr. Brown finds. In the first one too. There's a couple times, I think, where it says that I'm gonna miss you. Like, it's gonna be hard waiting 30 years
Talk
to
about
be
it.
able to talk about all of these things that have happened. And then I really appreciate his literal interpretations of things. It's like, like, yeah, because I do that sometimes, literal Lou, right? But it was like, oh, there's that word again, heavy. Like, is there in the future, is there something wrong with the Earth's gravitational pull? Like, stuff like that.
He's
Like,
ready to
I
solve it.
totally
He's, like,
get
ready
it.
to think about it. Like, you tell me what the problem is,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll work on it.
like,
No wonder your president's an actor. He has to look good on television.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
clever. But to the point you just made about that scene where he says it's going to be hard waiting for you, waiting 30 years to talk
Mhm,
about you, everything that's happened this week. I get teary eyed every time when Marty
mhm,
says goodbye to
mhm,
him. Oh man, it's like he's like, in about 30 years. He's, I hope so. And it's like, because he knows what's going to happen, and he refuses to hear what's going to happen. It's just like,
mhm.
oh man, and it's just like, it just gets me a little teary eyed. That part gets me when he goes to write the letter.
Yeah.
Dear Dr. Brown, on the night I go back, it's like, oh man, it's like he's trying to, the
Aw.
friendship is one of the greatest friendships in film. I think, ever.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I challenge
Yeah.
anybody in the street to tell me otherwise. But that is, it's like it's such a beautiful, honest,
Mm.
pure. There's no bullshit. It's just
Mhm.
real friendship. They really care about each other.
And I think also like the music is a big part of what drives that emotion, you know, specifically that scene when they're saying goodbye to each other and like the music is like, it's building in intensity, but it has like this like soft little cues
Hmm.
in it that kind of like tap into like their emotions. One part that always gets me is at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance when Marty is like about to fade away,
Yeah.
and then like George steps up and he
Yeah,
kisses her and like Marty stands up like he's like reinvigorated, he's back,
yeah.
and it's just like
Mhm.
the crescendo of even the song Earth Angel tied in with the score and the visual of what's happening. Because like, yeah, like Marty's fading away, like the sound is like becoming distant. It's like an echo
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
everything. It's like, oh
He's, like,
shit,
hurting.
here we go. And then, George comes through. He
Mhm.
Sends Courtney
he
Gaines to half court.
realizes, yeah, he
Yeah, yeah.
realizes his density.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Wait, and time out here for a second. So Marty is, like, he's in pain, right? And he's losing his hands. What about his brother who lost his head first? Like, what did he go through?
You know what I would like to see though, honestly? Like I would like to see the Eric Stoltz cut. I am like so
I'm
curious.
curious. Yeah.
Like you could cut it in where it's like it is actually a nightmare. It's not this like epic grand, life-changing time traveling adventure. It is actually just a nightmare that Marty has cuz how sometimes
Aw.
when you have a dream, you're in your dream but you don't look like yourself.
Yeah.
It could be one of those things. I would take that ride. I'd buy the ticket. I'd take the ride
Yeah, because Eric
just to
Stoltz
see.
is a very good actor and a
He's
really
a
good director.
very good. Yeah, he's fantastic, and, I've seen interviews where, they were saying I've seen some of the footage that they have released, because they shot all of the 1955 stuff with Eric Stoltz,
It's like
like, that
70%,
whole
right? It was done or
yeah,
something.
that whole, like, section of the movie is in the can somewhere, and then when they started doing the '85 stuff in the parking lot, that's kinda when they gave him the axe because you can see stills from that night of filming,
Mhm.
but all the 55 stuff they filmed with Eric Stoltz, so I would be very curious, like, I would pay money, I would buy the movie again just to see that cut, just to see it, because it's a great lesson, I think, is in that footage in terms of casting, in terms of chemistry, in terms
Mhm.
of, even just acting, and like what's a different take, because all the other actors are the same. And like I said, they all pretty much had like a
Mhm.
5-week dress rehearsal. Like they're all locked in. They are their characters. So whatever they did with Eric Stoltz is more or less within the realm of what
Mhm.
they did with Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox just was more tuned into what the director wanted
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
and, was able to deliver that. So there's gonna be a discrepancy for sure, but I think it would be very interesting and educational to see
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm not curious, 'cause I harbor no personal ill will towards Eric Stoltz. I think he's a very talented man.
Mhm.
It's an
Yeah.
unfortunate situation. I mean, if Gary David Goldberg didn't hide that script from Michael J. Fox,
Yeah.
right
We
right out
wouldn't
of the
even be
gate.
having this part of the conversation.
Yeah, so it's like, but he was so
Mhm.
afraid to lose Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox, as far as always going to be one of my favorite actors, but I'm not sure if people recognize how good his comedic timing is. Like he's funny, he's so good. His comedic
Oh,
timing
Mhm.
is unparalleled. It's so good, and sometimes it's not even. It doesn't have to be big. It's small, like Lou said. It's small. It's just a look or a reaction or he's so dialed in, and the fact that he was
Mhm.
doing that and Family Ties at the same time, and then there was a short time I think he was
He's
doing pickup
insane.
shots of Teen Wolf because he had to get that, so he was doing like 3 things at once. I don't know how that guy was even standing
Function.
at some points.
Mhm. Yeah, I think when you know the context of what he had going on, what Michael Fox had going on in his life at the time while acting. His acting stands on its own in this film, but that just adds it. It's like in the beginning, it's just like it's turned up to the max. It's pretty insane
Yeah.
that he survived that.
Yeah. To your point, though, Pete, you started talking about the music before. This to me is Alan Silvestri's masterpiece.
Oh yeah.
This is like without a doubt.
I mean, he's great. I love what he did with Roger Rabbit. I love The Abyss, as we all know. Predator's not bad either, but this movie, he's tapping into something else that is like transcending time.
Yeah,
it's not dated, and it's instantly identifiable. It's in that John Williams realm of musical like significance.
I was just going to say, I always jokingly say this is the one John Williams forgot to write because it's so grand and so big, but then it can be so small and so beautiful. And this is the only movie that I've ever seen live with an orchestra, and I know this music backwards and forwards. But when you're there, I heard little things I had never heard before, and it brought a tear to my eye, which sounds so ridiculous. But I was like, oh, it's because it's so beautiful, it's so good. It's by far my favorite score, and I think it's a character in the movie for sure. Like you don't have this. This movie isn't as good without this score. It's so powerful.
It's very recognizable.
It's iconic. It's commanding, but then it's gentle. Those moments, like we said with Doc and Marty, the saying goodbye, and even you said the crescendo at the dance. Like I've seen it so many times, I still get goosebumps.
Yeah,
when he kisses her and Marty pops up and and Marvin Berry he goes. It's, oh man.
Well, that whole final sequence when Marty shows up to ride the lightning, that whole sequence with the music, it starts with Doc there by himself. Damn, and it's slowly building, and then they have their moment, and the music doesn't stop until the lightning strikes. Like it's like a big chunk of the movie, and it's just the music there. It's like it's hitting everything. It's tapping into pretty much every like leitmotif that's been introduced into the movie up to that point, and then it continues to build and build and build until you like can't fucking take it anymore. But you're like so enthralled at that point, like you are like in that fucking DeLorean with Marty,
trying to get it to start.
At that point, like you're like flying down Main Street of Hill Valley, and I love the way as he's like about to go, through time, you see him like brace, like he like closes his eyes and like flinches. Like it's just like, holy shit, yeah, if this doesn't work, he's crashing into that movie theater.
Yep.
And one of my favorite parts about that is after this giant crescendo and this music and the lightning, and he goes back and there's just that quiet and there's the flames on the floor and Doc's just looking around. It's like, oh, it's just so good. It's that they let it breathe.
I've noticed a trend here lately on the podcast where, like, I mentioned this with Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones. He kills a lot of people, and then we talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and Blondie kills a lot of people. And honestly, like Marty kind of took out those Libyans. I'm just saying, they I don't think they were going home that night.
That's okay.
So Marty kills the most people in Back to the Future as well.
Well, they followed him right into the Fox Photo kiosk.
Yeah. The guy was standing out of the sunroof. He didn't see that coming.
Well, we did have a rocket launcher.
We also don't know how many
high ground.
We don't know how many people died trying to watch Lorraine. It sounds like a lot of people got hit by her dad. So it might be the dad.
Yeah.
Another one of these kids jumped in front of my car.
Stella. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, let's talk about Lorraine for a second because why not? I mean, Leah Thompson, holy cow.
I love the cake that she made.
Uncle
cake in the beginning.
Yeah. But again, just like Crispin Glover and Tom Wilson, she's doing the trifecta. She's got three different characters that she's juggling, and it's remarkable, and honestly, she might even be doing a fourth character because, teenage Lorraine, she's got a couple of sides to her, you
Yeah.
know?
It's true. It's true.
She's like, the good girl, and then she's the bad girl
Yeah.
that we
Mhm.
all just wanna, take a little ride with.
I like both. I will forever have the biggest crush on this woman because of this movie. I mean, her stuff in Howard the Duck doesn't hurt either, some of those outfits, but
Dude, no, well, she's and in Howard the Duck, she's singing that shit, like,
mhm,
that right there, just multi-talented.
yeah, yeah, Some Kind of Wonderful, which I love her in that all. I mean, she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
She's just a
I
gorgeous woman.
I personally like her in All the Right Moves, but that's for entirely different reasons.
Yeah, I just love that woman. She can't do any wrong. But I think at this time, such a young actress to give such a nuanced performance and
Yeah,
have it, and that's a credit to her. It's a credit to the writing, and it's a credit to the direction. Getting her
yeah,
through that stuff. And because I'll tell you what, if that dinner scene, that McFly dinner scene at the
Mhm.
very beginning doesn't work, if you don't
Mhm.
buy in, the movie's gone. Nobody cares.
Yeah, and her whole face is, like, covered, and it all that, like, disappointment and the letdown comes out in her eyes,
Mhm.
yeah.
When he starts
so she has it. Yeah, you believe it.
he
You
starts to
believe
do
it.
that laugh.
You only have that one scene with her, George, you
Mhm.
got the scene with Biff right before that,
Mhm.
and then you've got
Mhm.
that follow-up scene, so you kinda get a little bit more time with George, but Lorraine really just has that one scene to, like, establish.
Mhm. And the prickliness. Yeah. Yeah, she establishes it strongly.
And
She's
Yeah.
the
great.
vodka, just casually pouring it
Yeah.
into her glass and just sitting down and
Yeah, yeah. She's down.
yeah, it's I mean, wow. But I always think if you don't buy into Lorraine and her feelings towards George and how dysfunctional that relationships become, they're just a
Mhm.
bunch of kids wearing makeup, but
Mhm.
they
Well,
sell
and
it.
and you gotta wonder too, like, what was their relationship really like? Like how did Marty get where he is? Like how
Mhm.
did he get to be, this like confident, like well, and actually he isn't confident because he doesn't want to send his demo tape to the labels because what if he's not good enough, So you see the influence of George there, but Marty is
Mhm.
still trying. And you gotta wonder, like, okay,
Doc Brown.
exactly. But his mom's an alcoholic, his dad is, a
Not
bit of a
present.
coward and a pushover. His uncle's in jail, his brother
Mhm.
is working
Mhm.
at fucking Burger King,
Mhm. And then
like
there's Linda painting her nails. Yeah.
yeah, like what is he dealing with on a day to day? We just get this
Mhm.
like little glimpse into this like magical week
Well,
in
he
his
sets the
in
living room rug
turning
on
point in
fire,
his life.
right? He sets the living room rug on fire when he's a kid, so he was
Yeah.
doing maybe doing shit for attention. I
Mhm.
love that
Yeah.
moment when Marty realizes that he's more like his dad than he thought. Like,
Mhm.
I guess that sounds pretty silly. He want anyone to read his stories. It's like, no, it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. I get it, and that's such a
Mhm.
beautiful moment too. There's so many beautiful little moments in this film
Mhm.
Yeah.
that, at face value, oh, it's Back to the Future. People just kind of, it's a staple, it's a classic, it's one of those. But there's really some great stuff, great storytelling, and just great moments and great acted moments. And I think
Mhm.
one of the strengths for Zemeckis in this film, especially because he's got a great body of work that I adore, but he manages to capture the really important moments in such a fantastic way that they
Mhm.
like you said, that when George's hand clenches,
Mhm.
and it's just those little things. If it was done differently, maybe it's not as impactful, and then the movie's not as successful or as memorable. But he just manages to capture this stuff in just the greatest little ways, and I think that's
Mhm.
part of why it's such a classic.
I think
Mhm.
one thing that a lot of people seem to get hung up on with this particular film, it's, I guess, the elephant in the room, but of course, it's the relationship between young Lorraine and Marty or
Mhm.
Calvin Klein. And I feel
Mhm.
like, when I first saw the movie, I didn't, I saw it probably as the filmmakers intended, where it's just like, oh, isn't this like a goofy, awkward, like, madcap kind of like
Mhm.
comedy situation? But then, like, as time goes on and people start to read into it and they start to like project onto it, and then it becomes this like kind of like dirty, tainted, thing about the film. And it's like, man, I don't know what's wrong with the world, but I don't think there's anything wrong with this movie, and especially as it pertains to that, because I think what it's doing is it's playing up on a lot of different things, a lot of like psychological elements, and then it's also feeding into a lot of character development that's coming about in the film.
Yeah, and there's no line that's crossed. You know, like when the worst that happens is the kiss, and and it's awkward. She says,
Mhm.
"It feels like I'm
And
kissing my brother."
it instantly diffuses that whole like sexual tension.
The fantasy comes from his, basically, like, standing up, you know, I think that's what she witnesses, and he stands up to, like, the biggest bully in town, you know, so I think that's what sets that off, and then, you know, I know, she says, like, "It's not like I've never parked before." I don't know how experienced she was, it doesn't really matter, I don't know that it wasn't like this, like, hypersexual thing, it was a fantasy, but biology kicked in,
Yeah.
you know?
Uh,
So whether she knew it or not.
Well, I'll tell you, Pete, I agree with you. I've never seen that situation in the light that people make it this big deal now.
Mm,
I think it's a bunch of bullshit. It's so innocent because if you watch Marty's
mhm,
intentions, if you see she doesn't know who the hell this guy is, he's just a new guy in
Yeah.
school. It's so innocent. The
mhm.
funny thing is, people will harp on that point till the cows come home, and they miss the glaring thing of Biff is trying to rape her in the fucking front
I
seat.
know,
No
Yeah.
one
I
gets that
know.
part. No one sees that,
No.
and if you really
No.
listen
Mhm.
closely, she fucking whacks her head on the door. Like, he's like, "George,"
Oh,
and
really?
he's like, "McFly, turn around and walk away," and you hear her fucking head hit the side of the car. I'm like, "Oh my god, she really caught it." But no one talks about that point. But it
No.
Yeah, when I see you talked about, like, Goosebumps before, when I see that and she's, like, trying to get up, she's, like,
mm,
desperate, I feel the hairs on, like,
yeah,
the back of my
and
neck go
that
up, and I'm
music's
just like,
dun, dun,
"Fight,
dun, 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 it's
fight,
swelling.
Well,
fight,
and
fight," you know?
even in the cafeteria when he's like, grabbing her. And in the sequel
Yeah,
when
and
she's walking down the street and he's
Mhm.
her
grabbing
friends are
her.
just sitting there, you know, like, whack them with a tray or something.
And
Yeah, so that's not a deal.
like not for nothing, but I mean, if she finds Marty attractive, it's probably because he's the fucking progeny of George, who she ultimately winds up with.
Mhm.
It's like whatever
Mhm,
she finds attractive about George is in Marty.
Right.
mhm,
It's just there's that sorry. There's that like slight, disconnect
mhm,
where they should have met, where their paths should have crossed gets interrupted. And so now
mhm,
Marty's the guy who's, being nursed back to health and, just
mhm,
fulfilling that teenage, fantasy or whatever. But then when push comes to shove, like reality and biology kicks in. So,
mhm.
yeah, I totally like whenever people go on about that, it's like Jesus Christ, where yeah, and then your point about Biff, like
Like, seconds later, like, a couple minutes later, it's like that's happening.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Someone recently said to me, yeah, talking about, movies that, what's a good age to let your kid watch X, Y, and Z? We having all this discussion about all these classic 80s movies, and this came up, and someone had said to me, I wish it was more than just a story about a guy trying to get his parents together so he could be born." And my fucking head exploded. I was like, "You're talking to the wrong guy because if you don't if you don't see all the great attributes and the great storytelling and the character development, like Marty's in that car after that awkward during that awkward scene that everyone has their panties in a wad about. If you really watch it though, he's telling her not to smoke, not to drink. He's changing her
Mhm,
life, right? When he
mhm,
interrupts and pushes George out of the way of grandpa's car and he gets clipped with the car, he's changing that for the better because now when George
mhm.
defends her and stands up for himself, it's coming from a place of strength, not a place of she feels bad for him.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
whole
that's
dynamic
true.
shifts, and if you don't see that stuff when you watch this movie, I don't know how to help you because it couldn't
Mhm.
be it's not like you're not spoon feeding you, but it's fucking right there. So if you think this movie is just about a guy also, why would he wanna die and disappear? I mean, that's a good
Mhm.
motivation, like, I gotta get them back. I've screwed up the space-time continuum, I need to get them back together so I'm alive, my brother and sister are alive, maybe I could help Doc
Mhm.
be alive, so there's so when I heard that, I was just like, the heart was racing, I could feel the rage, I was like, "You you're
Yeah.
way on fucking
Yeah.
base here," but There's so many good things in this movie, and I said
Mhm.
there's the grand set pieces of the lightning and the DeLorean flying down the street and the fire trails and all that cool shit, Doc hanging from the
Mhm.
clock tower. But then there's also the little moments and how they build together. This to me is one of the I think it's a perfect film. It was definitely a perfect script. And talk about economic storytelling, talk about the pacing is impeccable and how everything that you see on the screen eventually will pay off in some way, shape, or form. And everything
Mhm.
you see on screen
Mhm.
has a meaning. Marty gets to play at the dance. He always wants to, his band auditions. Huey Lewis breaks the news to him. He's too darn loud. And then he gets to play at the dance. So everything gets fulfilled. Marty gets to fulfill his dream just in a different time. And he makes his
Mhm.
life better, like helping his father and his mother overcome their problems. In turn, he gets a better life. Because I heard that was another criticism. Oh, this movie is another example of 80s capitalism about how true happiness comes from having a better home and
Yeah.
better clothes. Such a bunch of bullshit. Because if you watch the movie, their lives are enriched, their lives are better, their relationship, their
Mhm.
marriage, their children, everything is reinforced because they came from a place of strength. They came from a place
Mhm.
of value. I don't think
Mhm.
Lorraine valued herself very much. She
No.
was looking for the next strong guy to come along to sweep her off her feet, and Biff was just a little too much. But
Mhm.
and then she'd feel bad for George because he got hit by the car. But Marty told her, "No, don't, you shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't drink, you might
Mhm.
regret it later in life." And something about that speech sunk into her head and changed her for the better. So
Mhm. Mhm.
that capitalism bullshit, I don't buy. The whole thing with the mother and son, it's just a bunch of crap. I feel like
Yeah, and I think
people are just trying to attack
they
this movie for no good
Mhm.
reason other than they need something to say.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think they kinda, like, they're following dreams, the parents, I mean, and they get to see them, like, come to be, like, I love even the, inspiration that, Marty gives to his dad, for, like, his science fiction story
Yeah.
that he goes with, and I think the mother-son thing too, I think if people are just looking at just the physical side of the infatuation, then they're just missing half of it, because I think even it's when Marty is, like, on the piece of wood with the wheels, right? That he's, like, flying around town, he just punched out Biff that, like, apparently nobody's ever done before, and that's really when she starts swooning. It's like what he's doing. It's not I don't know how much of it is really physical. I think that's just, like, a piece of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Someone
I don't know.
came
I think people just don't look deeper.
yeah, someone came out of no place and put it in his
Mhm.
place for the first time ever and stood
Dumped poo on him
up
and all his goons.
but someone stood up for her,
Mhm.
and that was a big deal.
Mhm.
And what happens later on?
Mhm.
George stands up for her in a really big way when it really counted, when it was down to the wire. And she's about to
Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
assaulted, and here comes George
Mhm.
McFly, and now she's in love with this guy for all the right reasons. So
Yeah.
if you don't take
Yeah,
that
for
away
the
from the
right
movie, right,
reasons, you're
if you don't
right.
take that away from this movie, I'm sorry, my friend, you've lost the plot, as the kids say these days. But all three films together, what a package. And I love the second one for so many reasons, but the third one is a movie that gets so overshadowed and so beat up at times. Like, people kind of crap on that movie for no good reason, and I think it's stronger than the second one.
I guess you think of like, oh, well, it's the third one. Like, how much story is left? Or, oh, yeah, it's the third one. Like, whatever. Like, they're just, making money at this point. It's like, no, man. The third one is really kind of like, on certain days, that's probably my favorite,
Hmm.
because the story is different. It takes it in a totally different direction. It's not a complete rehash. Like, I like two, but there are parts of two where it's like, okay, yeah, it's cool. We're going back into like the first movie from a different angle, but we're going back into the first movie. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, we're
Yeah.
Mhm.
we're in familiar territory, and yeah, it's neat playing with the whole paradoxical theme and idea. But for me, like, the third one just kind of hits like on a different like level
Hmm.
for a number of reasons. A lot of it having to do with Doc and Mary Steenburgen, like their relationship, Marty's role in that relationship, and then like the stakes are even higher because they're so
Mhm.
much further from the future, it's like Marty could live from 1955 to 1985 and like go tell his parents like, "Hey, I didn't, disappear or get kidnapped or murdered. Like I just, went back
Mhm.
in time and here I am and sorry." Like there's no way he's coming back from the old west unless it's in the fucking time machine.
Which is what I
Mhm.
love, one of the things I love about it, because he just could have went home. 1955 Doc could have put the fuse back into the DeLorean, sent him back to 1985, and he said, "I'm not going back without him." He's gotta go get Doc,
Mhm.
and that's the love they have for each other,
Mhm.
phenomenal, because he's putting it all on the line again. He was out clean. He's like, "No,
Mhm.
I'm gonna," once he saw he was gonna get shot and killed, "Nope, it's not gonna happen. I'm gonna stop it again." And he goes back and he stops it, and it's just that care for each other. And it reads as so genuine that none of it seems forced or faked.
I think one thing that also really just stands out, I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, but Tom Wilson in part 3 as
Mad Dog.
Buford Mad Dog Tannen. You look at Biff and it's like, okay, yeah, he's kind of like, he's playing the part to perfection. And then when he's old Biff, and then when he's like old man Biff, okay,
Mhm.
there's that
Mhm.
consistency across the board. But then to just again take it in a different direction, but still like maintain the core of that character, of that lineage, of that family. It's like, yeah, they're bullies from the get-go and it feeds down through the generations.
I
Mhm.
don't
And
think
like for him to have that kind of like restrained range. And then when you like see him in other stuff or see just him in interviews or on stage or whatever, it's like he's nothing like that. Like he is such a like friendly, jovial guy. So to be able to tap into that
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, let's think about it here.
is amazing.
1955 Biff, right? High school punk Biff. We have the original 1985 Biff we meet in the beginning. All you
Mhm.
have for me is light beer. Then you
Mhm.
have the changed Biff in 1985 at the end of
Mhm.
one.
Cowardly Biff.
Yeah. Then you have the alternate 1985 Biff in part two. Then you have Old Man Biff. Then you have Griff, and then you have Mad
Mm.
Dog Tannen. Was that 8? I mean, 8
Mhm.
variations on what could have been the same guy,
Yeah.
but he kept a thread that you could see they were all family members. But man, he brings
Mhm.
so much good. The fact that he didn't have a bigger career, I think, is one of the most criminal things in the history of cinema, because
Yeah.
he deserved it. And man, you don't have a good villain, the story doesn't work. Biff was
Mhm.
a great
No.
villain.
Mhm.
Out of all the meathead villains from the 80s, Biff Tannen is one of the greatest because he looked gigantic next to Michael J. Fox, imposing. Like you could just
Mhm.
pick him up and rip him in half. It just
I love the one scene of him, like, peeking over his shoulder.
Yeah. And the
It's
cafe
a
when he
great shot.
stands up.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
and I love the little cameo of Dean Cundy in 3 when he plays the guy taking the photo
Yeah.
of Marty and Doc at the
Mhm.
clock there.
Photographer.
How appropriate is that? But
Mhm.
even that scene when Buford is making his move on Clara and he's kind of pushing Doc around, I get emotional watching that scene, and it's because of those two guys. Because I totally believe Marty and Doc care about each other. It's not even a
Mhm.
question. I think those guys, like I said, Eric, nothing against Eric Stoltz, but it was supposed to be those two guys.
I love when he's questioning, when 1955 Dr. Brown is questioning, like, the responsibility of 1985 Dr. Brown with the amount of power. And who's the picture? He's like he starts talking to Tom.
Thomas
It's like a
Edison,
picture
Thomas
of
Edison.
Tom, can't
Thomas
be done,
Edison.
can't.
Yeah, so I guess
How could I
that's
be
his
so
friend.
careless?
I know. I love that whole yeah, he's great.
I'm sure in
He's really good.
1985 plutonium's available at every corner drugstore, but in 1955 it's a little hard to come by.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's really good.
The stars align for this film, and
Mhm.
like Pete said in the video, the cinematography and the editing. I mean,
Mm.
snap this thing into focus in such a fucking great way. I mean, oh, there's so many iconic bits
Mhm.
from this movie, and just the visuals, just Doc hanging from the clock, and when
Well,
Marty's
and
flying down, and
also, I mean, of course, I every time I watch this movie and it's the opening credits, I always like give like a verbal shout out to Dean Cundy. like
Mhm.
every time, because he's the man, like
Mhm.
he did Jurassic Park, like
Halloween.
he did most of John Carpenter's best films. He did most of Robert Zemeckis's best films. Like he's such a pioneer in the field of cinematography. And this whole trilogy, just like, with his eye behind it, capturing it, it's like, man. But then when you think about it in terms of the setting, it's like, okay, we're on the back lot. We're in the Universal
Mhm.
back lot. Like, you think about how many movies have been filmed there, how identifiable and iconic that town square is, and how fresh it looks in this movie, how distinct it looks between 1985 and 1955,
Mhm.
That
and just the selection of angles, and then the choices with the lighting and the framing, and just even the action and the movement within the frame and the camera work. It's like, man, what like a tour de force, because
Mhm.
you're basically locked into a setting, and that's another really cool thing about the film, is like that throwback, like it's almost filmed like a 1955 movie,
mhm.
like, because it is on the back lot. It has that other like aesthetic connection to it.
It never looks so real. Like, I know it's a backlot, but in Back to the Future, solely, it looks like it's a real street someplace.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, first episode of The Twilight Zone, it was an episode of Knight Rider, an episode of the Incredible Hulk TV series, Gremlins. It never looks so real.
Psycho 2.
Psycho 2. It never looks so real as it does in Back to the Future. It just blows my mind that that's the same place.
Yeah, and some of the shots, I think I really like when Marty meets his dad for the first time, because it's this little sliver of space, but there's like multiple things and multiple layers going on. So I like the guy that's, I don't know if it's Lou. I think I just remember
Yeah.
because he's
Mhm.
got the same name. The guy that's like serving, and then like he steps out and you see the dad, and then even like after Biff and his guys have left, you see them like piling into their car, like in the background, but
Yeah.
you have Marty and his dad. Like everything is so tight, but there's like these multiple, it's like those things you could like look in when you were a kid, and it had the
The
layers
three-dimensional, yeah.
to it, and it was like an accordion thing. Like
Mhm.
it was like that. Like there was just a lot going on in these little spaces, but the action, everything was really tight.
It's masterful. That's, I don't wanna keep throwing out terms like that, but it is. That stuff is masterful, and that stuff is lost in a lot of modern day movies. The visual storytelling, like Pete had said, I think The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, if you shut the sound off, you can still see what's going on. You still
Mhm.
get it, like, when George and Marty are sitting at the cafe, and Marty's staring at him, and then you just see the
Mhm.
profile of George,
Mhm.
and then
Mhm.
Marty
Mhm.
leans forward like, "Holy shit." It's
Yeah.
cool stuff
Yeah.
like that, just like, oh, it just you get what's going on in
Well,
Marty's head.
Mhm.
even the attention to detail, but also the precision in
Mhm.
reshooting the ending for the beginning of the sequel, when they had to replace Jennifer with
Mhm,
Elizabeth Shue, and just the shot for shot matching that goes on
mhm. Yeah,
from the end of part 1 to the beginning of part 2, and it's like, 4 years have passed. And yeah, some shots were probably reused, where it was just like Christopher Lloyd's hands digging through the garbage and whatnot. But everything else, like, you can go online and you can see people have like synchronized
yeah.
them, so you can see them, and it's just like the masterfulness of the cinematography is like perfectly exemplified right there, and the precision, the detail, the professionalism, and everything is like, holy shit, that is fucking phenomenal and tight and crisp and clean, and like the timing of it all, like, wow.
But I'll tell you, one of my favorite lines in the whole movie is
Mhm.
the most absurd line. It's Dave McFly when Marty's like, "The car's wrecked." "Wrecked? When the hell did this happen? When am I ever the
Oh,
last to
yeah,
find out
yeah,
about
yeah,
these
yeah,
things?"
yeah, yeah.
I quote that line so many fucking times, no
Uh-huh.
one has any idea what it's from. But I go, "All
Do
right,
you
Marty's
know
like."
do you know which line I quote a lot? "Don't con me."
Yeah,
I
yeah,
say
yeah,
that
yeah, that's a
all
good
the
one.
Yeah.
time to people. That'll about do it for us here today at the Visually Hidden Selects podcast. We will be discussing a completely different film next time, so make sure you head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe so you don't miss any future selections. You can catch Stephen Bendler over at Steve's Pop Culture Corner on Instagram. Louise and I are also on Instagram as well as Letterboxd, so you can follow us over there and find out what we've been watching and see what we think. And until next time, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.